Hinterland Education Development, Technical and Vocational Training, Literacy Enhancement. Education is on the move. On Education Spotlight, we look at developments within the education sector and how Guyanese can take advantage of the opportunities available. The Ministry of Education is constantly working on ways we can improve education delivery across the country. On this Education Spotlight, we're going to be looking at the Maths Unit at NSERD, an arm of the Ministry of Education, and how they have been working to improve maths education delivery across the country. Today, we're going to be talking to the head of the Maths Unit, Mr. Vishnu Pandey, and he's going to be telling us all about the work they have been doing. Mr. Pandey, thank you for joining us on Education Spotlight this week. Now, let's jump right into it and tell us all about the Maths Unit at NSERD.
Thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to converse with you on the Mathematics Department at the National Center for Educational Resource Development. Here at NSERD, the Maths Department, or the Mathematics Unit, forms an integral part of the structure of the National Center. And you know that mathematics is key and pivotal in the education drive of a nation. And we have planned a number of areas in which we like to work on to improve. As a matter of fact, as we speak now, you must know, or in fact it's public knowledge soon, or will be public knowledge at some time, that the NSERD has revised or re-engineered the curriculum of learning for mathematics. And we have spent quite a number of years doing that, actually. It took a journey from consultations to engagement with education stakeholders to theoretical perspective of how we're going to be dealing with the maths. And we actually engineered the entire curriculum. I'll probably talk about that as the program progresses. But at the National Center here, the Mathematics Unit is primarily responsible for the development of the curriculum of learning for mathematics throughout the entire system. So we're talking about from nursery right up to secondary. And that journey of knitting up a curriculum of learning is relative to the times, the change in times, and a number of other factors that we bring into focus when we do that. So that's another big area of that. Another area that we do is to empower teachers with knowledge and skills so that they can deliver the curriculum in the classrooms. And we offer them tremendous support in terms of resource and in terms of research and resource so that they can enrich the environment of learning in the classroom and bring the curriculum alive.
I'm glad you spoke about bringing the curriculum alive, because many times when students hear math, they have sort of a mental block. You're like one of the best persons I know when it comes to maths and making it fun. How do you make maths fun?
You asked a very good question. When people think about maths, you get a mental block. I've had many students in my years of teaching and mentoring as an educator myself, and you hear the utterance, maths, man, oh God, and like it's a steel door comes shriek and shut you off, right? But it has to do, and I'd just like to talk quickly about the actual notion of perspective on maths in that context. When you hear maths, you do get this sort of agitate, you feel very uncomfortable, but what is happening there is that you quickly recall on an experience you may have had before. And many times when the experience is not a good one, people tend to think, this is a hard subject and so on. And it has to do with the teacher. I mean, looking back in our years when we were children, the teachers who would have taught us, they've had, we deal with them quite a lot. And we know that sometimes they are harsh on us, and we remember that harsh experience. And sometimes that creates a mental block sometimes for life. What inspires you to learn maths is much more than doing the mundane thing or dreary attitude to maths, thinking about opening a textbook, giving you a whole set of problems to work, and then you get a set of answers, some are wrong, some are right, and you're just left like that. If you want to ask a question, to the teachers sometimes, or teachers, in the system who we had bad experiences, sometimes they would just, they would say, I don't have time for that. Maybe you need to improve and get better next time, or I can give you homework and you better go do it. And it's just sort of a harshness, that created that climate. But really and truly, mathematics is a beautiful subject. Everyone knows maths. Everyone can do maths. Everybody can do maths. It's just to be inspired to think mathematically is what the calling is. And great teachers are the ones who stimulate or create the condition or the climate for such thinking can happen. Teachers are really facilitators. I mean, I'm jumping right into teaching now, teaching and learning. But teaching and learning actually is responsible for our learning of mathematics. It supports us, scaffolds us throughout our years. And if I can intersect or come right back into the nucleus of our discussion at NSERT here, what we're trying to do is, what we have done already, is to engineer the curriculum in such a way that it provides the inspiration for learners and provides inspiration for teachers themselves, so that they can use the document in a way that creates this climate that we really want to see happen for people to learn maths. Okay. Excitement.
So give us a little bit of an insight as to what the new curriculum for maths entails that the teachers will have, because you say we'll also be providing resources for them and support for them to ensure that there's an enabling environment for students to learn. Yes.
Well, you see, the renewed curriculum, or we use the word very often, the re-engineered version of the curriculum, is re-engineered because it is constructed to meet the learner types we have in our system. Children of today are not like long ago. Children of today are the digital thinkers, and they're exposed to an immensity of information on the internet and in their experience in the environment as well. And so for that change itself, we had to respond with this curriculum. Re-engineering consists in our capacity or ability to construct learning experiences with a balance of assessment experience, so that learners are balanced in their learning. Now let me dive directly into what the construct of this curriculum look like. In mathematics, we have 5 strands at the primary level. There are number and operations, there's patterns and sequence, there is measurement, there is geometry, and there is data handling. And so the strands in the mathematics curriculum have been attended to in this renewed curriculum in a way that it brings inclusive learning strategies and inclusive assessment strategies to a balance. The inclusive learning strategies is constructed in such a way that the learners have opportunities to be engaged in lots of hands-on activities in an experiential way, lots of activities that has to do with out of the classroom, for instance, but and engaging, but in a way that that is developmental to the learners. And so when we knit up the strand, each one of those strands, we went with the following the National Commission of Teachers Standards, or the NCTM, the National Commission of Teachers of Mathematics, throughout the world, where that strand is being taught. So what I'm really saying is that if you're dealing with number and operations, the entire world is dealing with number and operations in the same way. This content is the same. Somebody in Australia and somebody in Quebec and somebody in Guyana, if they're doing then the factors of numbers, well then factors is everywhere. That's what has to be taught. So when we knit up the strand, we try to bring the experience in a Guyana context, and culturally relevant items, manipulatives are being referred to, and so the teachers, when they use that document to teach, can access those materials and engage the children in a nice way. And so we suggest some strategies and give some examples of some activities that they can use, and in a way that stimulates the teachers themselves to be innovative, that they can employ another strategy if they're both similar or in congruence to this one. So when there's the inclusive, we say the word inclusive because we want to make it as Guyanese as possible. And we want to also make it inclusive in terms that it caters for all types of learners. You know, in mathematics, and this is one of the fundamental problem in teaching and learning. In mathematics, we have to reach out to different types of learners. And sometimes I'd say the good, the bad, and the ugly, but that's not a bad way to say it. But we have different attitude to learning, we have dispositions to learning, we have children with different needs, even though they have the potential. So the skill of the teacher is to meet those needs. And so we suggest those in the strategies. The assessment now runs parallel to the learning strategies. So we ask, sometimes teacher ask, how do I know that the children are learning? How can I assess their learning? And we actually come far away from the summative method of assessment, this paper and pen tests. For far too long, that has not done what it should be doing. In this way, we present the curriculum. When we look at the inclusive assessment strategies, we offer the teachers ways and means of finding out how the children have learned. So they have something called exit ticket, for instance. They can give them a little question or so and on a one-to-one basis, and just to find out how they are coping with the learning of the day, how they did cope. Or we can have a whole class assessment where they go into 4 corners and you pose a question and you hear them speak and discuss about it. And from that way, teacher knows if they're getting it or not. And this thing about getting it or not is big on this menu of the curriculum. You know, the way we assess can't be the abuse yourself, we can't be it now. Children must be able to express themselves. You know, and permit me to, I cannot escape this part, permit me to bring into context the assessment dimensions, the teaching and learning dimensions. Let me go to teaching and learning first. Because what drives teaching and learning in mathematics are a set of standards. There are 5 of them too. I may not be able to dish out all 5 to do, but I can call a few. The greatest one there, the biggest one for me on the menu is problem solving. Problem solving is a process standard that carries the teaching and learning. Then we have applications and connections. So that consists in the ability of the child connecting what he or she has learned to their real world, to the real world, the child's real world. So to be able to connect the concept to the real world, the child being able to do that, not the teacher or nobody else, is called application connections. And then communication. The child or the learner be able to communicate their ideas in a unique way, communicate coherently to their peers, to their teachers. And so to clarify too conceptual understanding by having discussions and uttering or talking about it. So communication is very essential as a process standard. And then we have the other standards, reasoning and proof. That's big on the plate too. Children are supposed to be cultivating their habit. I say habit because it should be a natural way of doing things. A habit of asking why and why not. And if so, then so, or why not so? And the if and the why and the but is really good in developing reasoning and proof strategies. And to be able to argue. The chair has a height of 20 centimeters. Why is it so? Why couldn't it be shorter? Well, maybe because it has to go certain places and do certain things. So it's engineered that way. So discussions are happening, communication is happening. So these are 3 main process standards I'm talking about that drives the curriculum of learning. So our renewed curriculum is really exciting, packed with that. I haven't gone to the resources yet.
Okay. So let's touch on the resources.
Well, good. So what we do is each one of them, and just permit me to come to the resources because I want to journey you down to that part, right? You see, the strand is written in a language that is pertinent to the grade level. the learning outcomes, are written in that language. So if it's grade 1, for instance, and we're doing a set of things in number theory, then the language and the diction and all the conceptual framework is matching the maturity level of grade 1. And so what happens is that it progresses developmentally across the grades. So mathematics is a spiral subject. When we say spiral, it means that one thing leads into the other, into the other, into the other, it's coagulated in that way. And so if we take, for instance, measurement as a strand, you might want to, we have the essential learning outcomes. That really speaks to the fact that, to the ability of the child being able to, for instance, show understanding of the measurable attribute of an object. Though that's the essential learning outcome, to be able to understand the measurable attribute of an object. But then we break it down further. What skills and knowledge that child is should be able to acquire so that such an outcome is possible. And so we develop the specific curriculum outcomes written in behavioral terms, using verbs and so on. The teachers who are trained would know that language of writing with objectives in behavioral terms. I mean, the old way of doing things used to be that when you write an objective, it must have criteria, condition, and so we move away from that. We're writing it in behavioral terms that would have those inside, but we concentrate primarily on the skills development. Because we believe in mathematics, knowledge is acquired from behavioral patterns and skills development. And when the children can construct their own knowledge, then that's where we want to see our children. And it rests on a theoretical underpinning of constructivism. That's a theory in education that is a backbone or the foundation of this renewed curriculum. What it really means is providing, I've been babbling a lot of time about it, providing the experience and scaffolding in a way, teacher doing the scaffolding. You ever see a ladder up on a building, you want to get to the top there and paint, when you bring the ladder to suit, you climb and you access that. So we want our children to access the learning by the teacher having the skills in scaffolding. Right, so we have the SEOs like that. And then we do the development of the, so if the SEO, for instance, is to measure objects using non-standard units. That's hand span, and how many spectacle lengths is my arm length. My arm is 3 spectacle length. Well, that child is able to have a concept of measurement in a non-standard way by expressing it that way, and be able to use it in many other objects. So we bring that behavioral term for the teacher, to provide the experience, and that's the learning strategy. Now, what I was talking about is to suggest many ways how we can do this in the classroom, and the assessment strategies of what we can do to, maybe observation. That's big on our plate, In the renewed curriculum, observation is big on the assessment strategy. Now, the resources that the teachers would need, because of this experience, will be many physical resources, hands-on resources. We call them manipulative, to be able to fit up a set of objects together, make a pattern, and so on. And so we pack that in the curriculum. And in a way that is inclusive too. We call it inclusive resources, meaning that a child in Marura now, Deep South Rupununi, can access material and with the same concept and do it there, as opposed to a child in Georgetown who can go and get the things that we buy in the store and so on. We wouldn't have that there, but they could do the same thing. And so the teacher can be able to collect some straws in the environment, maybe some little bricks, call them pebbles, make a math corner. You can use resources from your environment. It's very good because a child can connect with that. So to address the resources, that's how we do, and that's how the curriculum is made. I mean, in verbose, but if you look at it structurally, on a PowerPoint, you'll see it better.
I know you and I can sit and talk about maths all the time, but before we go, do you want to tell us a little bit about the training for teachers?
Oh yes, because that's one of the bigger dimension that I mentioned earlier about the responsibility of the maths department, and hence the other subjects too. But empowerment of teachers in terms of knowledge and skills to deliver the curriculum requires the ability of us at NSERT harnessing ideas suggested to each area of focus in a way that is also engaging for teachers. So if we want the children, for instance, to have the knowledge and skills in XYZ, the teachers themselves must possess that knowledge. So we bring that experience to them. So in empowering them, we do it through what we call workshops, where we bring them on a face-to-face engagement, where they have lots of hands-on activities. And also we engage them in a virtual platform where we can explore some digital experience, with simulations, for instance. That's another big area that we do. So we train the teachers in a way to deal with to empower them with what we call the pedagogical content knowledge, meaning the methods used to teach and the understanding of the child psychology in teaching and learning and a few other things. So we focus on the pedagogical content knowledge as in the same way that we build their knowledge too. But empowering teachers have been on our plate for a long while now, and we have been making quite a lot of progress. For this year, for instance, one of the strategies in the mathematics plan of the year, and it rolls on for the next couple of years, is the development of specialized training for making of specialist maths teachers. And so we started that at the primary level, we have already had a workshop, we already had one session of training. It was in the newspapers actually being advertised that NSERT is doing specialist training. For some reason, somebody carried it a bit different, but the focus really there is to train teachers in the teaching and learning of each strand of the primary mathematics curriculum, each of the 5 strands. So we're going with 1 and 2nd and the 3rd and so on, systematically, but we're taking the ones that is more rudimentary and prerequisite based, the one that has relationship with all the other strands, like a foundation. So we've had a specialist teacher training at NSERT already for this year. We train a cohort of 30, and they're going out there in their schools, and they will be using the strategies that they learn and enhance their teaching delivery. What we do now is to follow up on that at NSERT. I don't like to use the word monitoring their progress. I use the word mentoring. So we're offering the mentorship there. We go and reach out to them and see how they're progressing, and then offer them the necessary other scaffolding support so that we get it right at some stage. While that is going on, we invite another cohort and we do training. But the thing is, we would like to be as equitable as possible. So we have one more training coming up at the end of this year, but especially next year up till about August. I think that budgeted up to August, September next year, when the whole cohort will have been, trained. We're doing it in a way that we're going into the regions and do the specialized training too. So Region 9 will have theirs, Region 8, Region 7, Region 6, Region 5. We're spreading out and we're doing it concurrently. So perhaps in 2 weeks' time, you'll have a lot of region receiving the same treatment and so on. The same monitoring mechanism will be in place. Hopefully, we get more people to come join us next year, and we have enhanced our capacity to do that. But building specialist teachers is big on our plate. For this year also, we have taken a particular strand, analyze it. We do follow statistically how children are progressing with their learning and how teaching and learning is going with the strand. We have many strategies that we pursue. For instance, we have the grade maker that we use to analytics that gives us the data and the analysis of the data. But for us at NSERT here, we like to dig deeper, because if you collect data and they analyze the data, like they would say, How many children in Region 4, for instance, have earned 50% and over in the subject over a period of time. The data would show you that. But what is most important for us is after that analysis is how we interpret it to develop strategies to make improvement in children's learning, students' learning. That's big on our plate. Interpretation of data is very important. So we're tracking that and to inform us, So what we've done this year, we did the tracking and we developed a strategy to deal with geometry in the teaching and learning, because that's very important. For far too long, the graph has not been going nicely in geometry. To look at maths as a whole, where the percentage pass rate is in the 30s or whatever it means, would not give you a full reflection of what are the developmental stages that really arrive there. And you really have to really be treating with the individual areas that really add up to that percentage. So we recognize that geometry for long has been the big of a problem. And so we're treating it right now. We're doing the teaching and learning in the strategies, pedagogical knowledge content, and so on with the teachers, engaging them quite a lot. And then following back in the classroom, supporting them with resources to see how the learning is improving as an outcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pandey. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been Education Spotlight. Thank you for watching, and remember to join us again next week for another edition. Goodbye.